be doing this laziness in such a way. If you think about it, when you're declaring your objects, like your React elements, basically you're describing what you want to see, and you delay the execution, so it gets fed into the reconciliation algorithms, all the fibers gets created, and eventually you will have a rendering layer, whether it be React DOM or React Native render, it doesn't really matter. But you as a developer have absolutely no idea unless you dig into the source code what's going on. So the whole thing is basically a laziness that's going on. At least that can be thought of as an example of how it's handled. I mean the side effects. So now we set up get filters, set filters. And in the actual user effect, we can just get filters. We can chain, which is basically we can think about it as like sequentially applying different containers that implement this sort of interface. And then when you call around, that's the only point when you pull the trigger, and that's when all the things get executed. So yeah, I think it's a lot of things. So as some closing thoughts, this whole thing is definitely have a steep learning curve, and I think it's particularly hard in some point because it doesn't really map how we perceive the world. I mean, it's all mathematical stuff, which I have no idea what it is. So it's definitely hard stuff. But I think it's definitely value in it, because at least for my experience, when I visit code that I wrote, I mean, obviously there are a lot of tools that you can do with it, but if your logic scales beyond a given point, it can really help you to write code in such a manner that it will be readable from not visiting for a long time. And yeah, that's the one point that I think it definitely scales in a lot of cases better than some imperative counterpart. And also it's incrementally adaptable. So if you want to give it a try, it doesn't really mean that you need to go 100% on it. You just can start experimenting on it. So yeah, library is mentioned. As I said, it's run by Lodash Crocs. You can check them out if you want. And yeah, that's it, I think.
Is that on? Thank you. Do you have time for questions? Do you want to answer some questions? Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, sure. Any questions, anybody? Okay. Well, thank you. It's good talk. I really, I'm going to go check out Crocs after this. I know the other libraries super interfunctional as well, so Crocs looks like a good little library to use.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so now we're going to have another short break. I guess more beer, pizza, other beverages, and then we'll be back in like maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Sorry, let's move on.
Okay, welcome back. So next up we have Kelly from CrowdStrike going to give us a little talk about keeping our projects up to date. Definitely something that I could benefit from. So take it away.
Can you hear me? All right, good. Thanks, Joe. All right. So, thank you, everyone. My name is Kelly Selden, and this talk is about keeping your React apps up to date. So, to start a little bit about me. I'm on the Ember core team, and I mainly work on the CLI. And I work at CrowdStrike here in London. It's a cybersecurity company with an all Ember front end. We're hiring any skill level, even junior, so come chat with me if you haven't picked a framework yet or you know someone who might be interested. So why am I here? I'm an Ember guy. I know very little React.
This is actually my first React event, so be gentle. So why am I presenting at a React meetup? I built a thing. It's a thing to keep your React apps up to date. Do a lot of people here use Create React App? All right, cool. All right, so we start this journey with Ember CLI. It's a lot like Create React App, but it has a lot more boilerplate. It doesn't have the, less is more mantra. It has a lot of Travis CI configs, it has a lot of test helpers, a lot of editor configs, and you name it. So it became difficult to keep things up to date and deliver these changes to the boilerplate to our users. So Ember CLI update came out of my frustration of keeping many apps and Ember add-ons up to date. So we fast forward to recently where, Ember CLI update's doing its job. It's working well for the community, but I was looking for an opportunity to branch out of my Ember bubble and start talking at different conferences. And so I was thinking about that updater I built, and when I came to think of it, it doesn't actually have that much Ember specific code in it. It's maybe a lot of Git magic. So I went out to port it to Create React App. So I just started fork copy, find all replace Ember React, see how it went. And it worked for the most part, but one thing I noticed is no matter how far back into time I went with my Create React app version, like 1.0, pre 1.0, when I tried to make an app with that version, I always got a brand new app. And so that's one of the stumblers I came off of my assumption first of all was with Ember CLI, you want an old app, I'll give you an old app. With Create React App, like good luck getting an old app. We're going to just make it new every time, no matter how old a version you're on. The second stumble I had was when you make a Create React app, the version itself of Create React app is not stored in your project. You get a version of React scripts, but that's it. Ember CLI, you get a version of Ember CLI in your dev dependencies. So it's very easy to tell which version you're on. So with Create React app, I had to go up dependency trees to try and detect which Create React app version generated the project. So there's a fair amount of code in there dedicated to that. And then since then, very recently, I didn't want to have to maintain these two separate code bases that are 99% similar. So I extracted both their code bases to a parent called boilerplate update. And so the goal is now, if I want to make another one or a couple more of these, it's just going to be a few lines of code. So do we even need an updater for React? One of the goals of Create React App is, bundle everything into this single dependency called React scripts. But even so, you might miss some of the boilerplate updates that happen over the versions. So there's a service worker in there, and over the versions of Create React App, it gets updated and tweaked and bug fixed. And there's an index HTML in that boilerplate as well, and that gets tweaked over the years as well. And you might miss out on those. And then even if you eject your Create React app, then you really come into this getting out of date scenario. So at this point, I'm just curious, those Create React app users out there, how do you update? Is it maybe just Node or something? Is it just an update of Create React scripts and maybe React and React DOM? Just tick those versions and call it good usually? Yeah? Or do you actually try and figure out what other files changed in the Create React app? Or you just call it good? And has anyone run the injection process of Create React app? Yeah? Do you just maintain your own copy now and just forever you're forked from the main, or do you try and get new changes to those ejections? Okay, perfect. I wrote this for you. Oh yeah, so yeah, just bullet points, automated updates, conflict resolution, run some code mods, and then a few more things. You know, here's just like from taken verbatim from the README. Here's how you install it. If you want to run it globally and have a copy around all the time, you also get the shortened alias. But you can run it on the fly too if you want with NPX. Anyone here don't know what NPX is? Okay, I won't explain it. Two main commands, and the reason there's two and not one is because the updating process can give you Git conflicts, and you'll notice them maybe with like less than head files in your little sections in your code, and that's what a Git conflict looks like. And what the code mods do is they parse JavaScript, so they of course cannot deal with that code, so it has to be kind of broken into two steps. All right, demo time. Wish me luck. Okay. All right, I tried to scale it up so that people in the back can read it, so I apologize if it's a little small. But let's hope the Wi-Fi is gentle. Oh, typo. All right, so this takes a while, so I'm going to run it and then start explaining things. So here we are. My initial commit in this demo is a brand new Create React app as of like a couple years ago. This is all the boilerplate that comes with it. And if you imagine, this is a perfect update. I basically didn't change the default that came with it, and I just went through an update. So this is the kind of things that you'll get with an update of Create React app. This is what newer stuff looks like compared to the older stuff. And then this demo would be very boring if I just did a fresh app upgrade. So I'm adding things to trip up my updater. So this is what you might do in your app. You know, you're going to add your own git ignore lines up at the top. In my package.json, I've added some more dependencies. I've got GraphQL in there. I've got Sass in there. My README, I've added some badges to the top. And then in my index.html, I've added some. Oh, it finished and took me over there. Go back over here. And in my index, I added some more meta tags. And then I'm going to go over here, and this it's a bit verbose right now, but this is just telling me I had your git apply had some conflicts. And so what it did was it generated two brand new apps, one for your old version and one for the latest version on NPM. And then since my app was ejected, it takes these two fresh apps and it goes through the ejection process with them too. And then Yarn installs again. So you got 4 Yarn installs going. So it takes a little bit. And then here we are with an update. And so let's go through some of the easy ones first. So here's our git ignore. We've got all the boilerplate updates over the time. And you'll see that it retained our changes here. We'll go into package.json as well. You get all the updates that happened, you know, React 15 to 16. And our dependencies are down here. And so what happened was in Create React app, they decided to switch everything from dev dependencies over to dependencies. And so it took all of it with it, but you still had some in dev depth, so it retained them down here. Let's go up to some more difficult stuff. So here we got a conflict. And so right here up where we added our badges was right in the middle of a rewrite of the README. So right here is what Git can't figure out what to do, so you get a conflict for you to resolve yourself. And then also in our index.html, similar. We have our meta tags we added up here. We have the official blueprints, or sorry, boilerplate was updated right here. The meta tags changed around, and it was right smack in our section, so we have conflict right here. But the rest of the file got the changes. All right. That was the update process. Let's do some resetting. And we're going to go back over to another demo I have set up for the code mods. Reset hard, everybody's favorite tool. Okay, and now I've put some very simple code in here just to trigger my code mods. So let's go run the code mods. All right, so now what it's doing, it's not instant because it's going out to fetch the code mod list. And this network is very fast, so I was expecting to talk longer. There are my code mod list, and I'm going to select them all to make it interesting, and go ahead. And so these code mods happen to come from React Code Mod, and so their process of running these is cloning, and then yarn installing, and then running them with some parameters. So that's just what the tool is doing right now. And there's only 2 right now because I just started this project, and it just takes a little bit of time to add more. So there's only 2 right now. But I didn't write these code mods. I'm just running them from an external source. And that was the second one, and we're done. So let's see what it did. It's a very simple example, but it triggered on both of mine. So it updated our JSX syntax right here, and React 15, v15 code, the old error handlers, it converted to the new one. All right. Demo over. Okay. Here are my old crap, the demo didn't work slides. Let's skip those. All right. So what's happening? It detects your local version of Create React App. It goes out to NPM to get the latest version. It generates 2 apps using your version, the new version, stores it in system temp. Then it generates a patch between them, and then lastly applies the patch to your repo. And that number 5 is actually very hard. That was the bulk of the research for the Ember CLI update, the initial one. And I stored all that code in a new project called git diff apply. So it just does one thing only. And then that bonus down at the bottom, it applies a JSON patch to your package JSON. So that JSON patch understands what JSON is, so you never get conflicts. All right, compared to doing this all manually, pros are it only changes the code that needs to update, and it preserves your own. It's aware of Git conflicts, so you can use your Git tool of choice to resolve them. And the cons are you have to be online to update, unfortunately, and it can be pretty slow. All right, if you're going through the normal update process and you just updated, before you get into code mods, you'd want to resolve any conflicts, of course, because you can't have any of those conflicts in there for the JS parsers. And you would fix any broken tests, because after your code mods run, if you have bugs, then you won't know if it was the update or the code mod process. So it's good to separate it. And then the same reason for the commit. It's good to separate the steps so it's less confusing. And then we saw this a little earlier, the run code mods and the output. And so I would say that it's a little smarter than just running a list of code mods. It uses your project type, whether it's regular or ejected. Uses versions you have, like React versions or React scripts versions, and it uses your node version to give you the list of code mods that apply to your project. For example, we're not going to run a code mod that removes all the unstable handle errors if you're still on v15 of React, because it came out, the code mod is for the v16. Why not run all these code mods yourself? I mean, they're on React code mod. You could run them yourself if you wanted to, but you have to know where to find them. A lot of them are in React code mod, but there can be others in other repos. You have to know how to run them. Some of them can be complicated, as cloning and yarn installing, and then knowing the params to pass it. And you have to know if they're compatible to your project or they're not too new. A little bit of what it's doing in the background is it uses a downloaded manifest file instead of bundling these code mods as dependencies, and then it downloads the code mods and runs them. The pros are you always get the latest code mod fixes. You don't have to worry about updating your version of the updater itself to get any of these code mod updates. We can even add new ones on the fly, and you still don't have to update the updater. Just the next time you run code mods, you'll just get them. The cons are they're not protected against new bugs in the code mods. We almost go back in time to when before we had lock files, and you could just get a bug randomly. We're also relying on internet, which means it can be slow. And then a bonus con is changes in the code mods can break the updater's test suite because we run the tests as part of the test suite and we compare against fixtures and they can get out of date. So our tests go red sometimes when the code mods are updated. Some of the other options, you can use from and to if you want. They're usually auto-calculated, but you could put in from if you want if you updated React scripts version without taking any of the boilerplate with it. So you could bump it down a version to take more with. To is useful if you want to update in pieces or you already know your app's broken in the latest, so you can just bump it down a little. They're both Semver aware as well, so you can just put in to or beta or next and it'll resolve. You can run through your merge conflicts automatically if you just run resolve conflicts. Stats only shows you anything that calculates about your app. And then list code mods just gives you all the code mods it has on the server. So here's an example if you just did stats only. And here's what some examples of what it might detect about your app. This is an ejected one. And you'll notice it only has one code mod in this list and not two because the from version is too old. It excludes the newer ones. And then if you ran list code mods, it just dumps out the manifest file. So these are all what are available on the server, and it shows you their commands and the requirements for running them. And I'm still in the process of adding more to this list. And here is the repo URL. Check it out if you're curious about how I did it or you want to help contribute. And feel free to come talk to me if you have any questions about updating Ember or cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Hello.
Hi.
You showed an example of it updating, I can't remember what the previous one was, but to component did catch or something.
Yeah.
I assume, does that apply to new components that you've written as well? Like, is that a code mod that that looks through all of your components and sees whether you use the old syntax and checks the new one, or does it only do the ones that were given to you by Create React App?
Oh, I see. No, those code mods are
because they're generic.
generic. Yeah, they actually don't even care that you're in Create React App.
Right. Okay. Cool.
And disclaimer, I didn't write those. I'm just running them.
You're saying that the cons were it being slow and requiring the internet.
Yeah.
Have you tried hooking that sort of thing up to something like Greenkeeper or Renovate?
So that like a Greenkeeper would have like a
Something that just triggers,
like a hook
triggers it automatically when it detects that it's out of date.
I've thought about that. It would make, like a lot of my tasks easier, but like when you get a conflict, I don't know how you would automate that away. It's almost like it would be a job to generate some conflicts for you. And I don't know if Greenkeeper has hooks. I have no idea, but it's something that could be improved on, I think. This is not like the end all be all. This is just a stepping stone, a little minor improvement I discovered, I guess.
Cool. Does anyone else have any more questions? P.S. Welcome to the React community.
Thank you.
I hope that you share more in the future as well.
All right. Yeah.
And I hope that anyone in this room will maybe talk at Ember events. Are there Ember events in
yeah.
London? Yeah, cool.
Love to have you.
Cool. So, should we wrap it up there? Give another round of applause.
Thank you.
Right, I've got a few more little notes that I've got to read out of my notebook because I can't remember things. Just a second, click to the right page. Okay, so just to tell everyone that we're going to the pub still, and that is, again, the Three Johns at 73 White Lion Street, if you want to join. Again, a thanks to Alex, Andre and Kelly. Sorry, Alex over there. Can we give them another round of applause? Massive thanks to Ticketmaster again for hosting. And if anyone in the audience wants to talk at a future event, come and get in touch with us. So you can come tap me on the shoulder, tap any of our other badges around, or you can also email us. I think it's hello at React London, React.London maybe? I don't know. We'll look it up. Come talk to me. That's the easiest way. So we've also run a couple of other meetups, so be sure to join our mailing list if you're interested in that. And I've got a little, like, I feel bad doing this, but Red Badge is always looking for people, and we like to hire great people. So if you're one of those people, come talk to us. And thanks again for coming, and thanks again for everyone. I just came and talked. That's easy to about. You have to say thanks